We've taken the process of pruning climbing roses and broken it into 5 basic steps using the acronym PRUNE. P-R-U-N-E. We'll walk through each of these basic steps, and the end result will be a beautifully trained climbing rose that's going to produce blooms top to bottom throughout the summer. The first step is P, prepare your plant. We're going to remove any canes that are in our way and can't be trained back up onto the trellis to climb. It just makes it easier to work and gives us a safer area so we don't get poked in the eye. As you can see, these 2 canes right here are coming out into the bed, and they're growing in such a way that it's going to be impossible for us to tie them up. So we're going to go ahead and take these off. There's one more cane right here. That's coming out, but I think we'll use that later. And for this rose, that's basically it. On climbers, it's less about cutting and more about training. We'll talk more about that as we get into the U section. R stands for remove all deadwood, diseased, and crossing canes. That applies to any rose, and on this climber, it's going to apply to all this stuff down here at the bottom. When pruning climbers, we want to start at the base and work our way up. So we're going to go through and remove all of these spindly canes. They're not going to produce much and they just break right off. So we'll go ahead and cut those right out of here. And as you can see, it really opens the plant up so we can see what we have to work with. There's a diseased cane back here. We're just going to cut that right off. Put that out there. Right in here, I'm going to take my smaller pruners and I'm going to cut out some of these crossing canes here. They're really in the way and not going to develop blooms. Deadwood. A common problem with climbers can be a cane that rubs against the trellis. It develops an open wound here, which is susceptible to disease. We're going to go ahead and cut that right out. As you can see right here, there's an open spot. We're just going to cut that off right here. So we've removed the problem areas of the plant, and that leads us to our next step, U, understand your plant. This is the time when you want to step back from the plant, take a look at it, and determine what do you want this climbing rose to look like and do. What location is it in? Do you want blooms all over the plant? Do you want to train it in a certain direction? And in this case, we want blooms top to bottom as best as possible, and we want to fill this trellis. So we're going to step back and look at the canes and begin looking at how we train those. On a climbing rose, there's 2 types of canes, main canes and lateral canes. Main canes come from the base and go all the way up the plant. Lateral canes come off of the main cane and are what produce blooms. The trick with climbing roses is to train your main canes in a horizontal fashion. So you want them to go out and over. That will cause the lateral canes to grow upward, and that produces your bloom. So by training your main canes from the base to the top in a horizontal fashion, you'll get blooms from the base of the plant all the way to the top. On this rose, we have 6 main canes. One of them is pretty substantial and climbs clear to the top. But as you can see, it has a lot of lateral canes coming off of it that are all going up. And we want to rejuvenate this plant and to get more blooms top to bottom. And so this is going to make people a little scared, but we're going to go ahead and cut this large cane right out of here. What it's going to enable these other canes to do is we can train these because they're more pliable. So remember, when we're working with the climbing rose, we always start from the base and work our way up. So we're going to take this large cane and cut it off right here at the base. Now that's a big cut, and it's going to make some people a little worried. Did they just destroy their rose? It's okay. This big cane needed to come out of here. So the trick here in getting this out of here is to cut it into pieces. Again, start at the bottom and just cut this into manageable chunks that you can pull out. By starting at the bottom and working your way out, you won't accidentally cut off one of those main canes that we left in place and want to use. So as you can see, we took out that large main cane, but there's still a lot of rows left here to work with. There's still 5 main canes that can be trained. So next we'll go through and trim out the laterals off the mains and we'll just have those 5 to work with and train onto the trellis. And right here on this main cane, we have some branching happening. And we have to make a decision because we can't train all of this in the same direction. It's going to fight each other. There's a large cane coming up here to the right. And we might be tempted to leave that, but it's going to be difficult to train, and we're going to have a healthier plant if we go ahead and leave this smaller cane and train that in as we want. So we're going to go ahead and cut this main cane out right here. I said earlier that pruning climbers was more about training the canes and less about cutting them, but as you can see, we cut a lot of canes out of this rose. This rose hadn't been properly cared for in quite a while and really needed to be rejuvenated. So now we're down to 4 main canes which we can train onto this trellis, and we will still get abundant blooms this summer and lots of growth. This rose is going to love what we've done. So again, let's start at the base and work our way up. 1 cane at a time, we'll begin training these onto the trellis. This is a pretty long, pliable cane, and I think we can bend it 2 different times. So we're going to go ahead and tie that right on here with a zip tie. Not too tight. Snug enough that it holds it in place. And again, right over here. And then we'll go ahead and bend this cane on back around and tuck it in. That'll allow us to fill the whole bottom portion of this trellis. And then I go through with my pruners and cut the tails off the zip ties for a nice clean look. This center cane, we're going to train so that it grows right above the cane we just put in place. And I'm going to go ahead and tuck this in behind to help support it. We'll put a zip tie here to keep it close to the base. And we'll go ahead and guide this cane up towards the top. This cane we're going to bring right up like this, and we're going to zip tie it here so that it stays in place. And again, we'll fan this cane out so it gets horizontal up in here to promote blooms. And we'll go ahead and take these lateral canes back to a bud. And then our last cane is pretty short. We're going to just tie it off here, and we're going to eventually let it grow up to the top along the outside. So we'll simply put a zip tie on this until it starts to grow. Now we're ready for our next step, which is N, nothing left behind. We're going to clean up all of the leaves and diseased canes and everything left underneath this rose so that we have a clean start. None of those spores and problem areas will be there to grow this spring, and you'll have a healthy start to a happy rose. Now with everything cleaned up, that leads us to our final step in the process, E, enjoy your rose. This rose is going to grow dramatically this spring, and you're going to have blooms top to bottom throughout the summer. That wraps up our 5 simple steps for pruning climbing roses. We've learned that horizontal canes produce the growth, vertical canes and laterals produce the blooms, and you're going to have a beautiful wall of color. For more information about growing roses and to shop for climbing roses for your garden, visit us at heirloomroses.com.